evening, everybody. I have the absolute pleasure today to introduce a geologist from Troy, Ohio, Mr. Michael Manning. He has over 30 years of experience in the field of geology and has traveled in many countries in his rock hunts and expeditions. He's not just a geologist, he's also a teacher, a rock hunter, a collector of gems and minerals, fossils, and even a business owner. He's had quite an interesting career. And on behalf of all the participants here, I really would like to welcome you, Mr. Manning, to our conference. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. I'm enjoying being here.
Well, I have to tell you, on behalf of everybody, it is such a pleasure. Right now, listening to your presentation, there are about 500 young participants, students, instructors, and special guests from all around the world. They're sitting outside underneath the stars looking at your presentation on the big screen and very much looking forward to this. And on behalf of all of them, the World Genesis Foundation, Wisdom Art, and the United Nations, I would really like to thank you for joining us. And I have to tell you, as we got started, because your background is so diverse, it really raised many different questions. One of the first was, when we look at your career, you've had over 30 years of achievements in the field of geology, and that includes proven successes with projects and expeditions in several countries. When did you know you first wanted to be a geologist, and how did you get started?
Well, I think I really got started when I was a young kid, really. I mean, it was always fascinating. The Earth always fascinated me. There was always that question about, what was below the ground, and, I was always interested in caves and things like that. And I started picking stuff up as a kid and, bring it back. And I remember the first fossil bone I thought I brought home, and it was actually a cow's bone. It wasn't fossil, but I found it in a rock pile, and I thought for sure it was a fossil bone, but it wasn't. But that kind of got me started interested in looking for things. And, it's just developed into, from there I got my bachelor's and master's in geology, and then I went on to, I had my small business all along collecting rocks all over the United States and in some other countries, and it's just been an interesting, I've never been bored a day in my life, so it's been really interesting.
Well, it sounds fascinating. I tried to imagine, it's hard for me being a physicist, but if I were a young student, or if I decided to change my day job and start learning about geology, and I was to come attend one of your classes or join an expedition, what could I expect as a student who would come to work with you?
Well, there's all kinds of jobs in geology. If people don't realize with all this information on the news about the oil spill and stuff, the fact that geology did play a part into developing the oil well and, finding these locations. And there's also coal mines also. A lot of our resources come from that. But I like the part where, I look for fossils and the gemstone mining more than that part. So if a person went with me, like on one of my digs, say out west, I go with a group called Paleo Prospectors, and we go out there, and we go on private ranches. And what we do is we basically keep the fossils that erode out from being destroyed. People don't realize that every year there's probably tons and tons of dinosaur bones that if somebody doesn't pick them up, they will be eroded away in just in a few years. So we try to preserve a lot of those, and if we find some that are pretty well attached together, then we can put together a skeleton and donate it to a museum and, do a little of that to help the world and stuff with seeing the fossils, and also it helps us because we're allowed to keep some of them in collections and stuff, and it helps pay for a little bit of our trips and pays the ranchers also, so everybody benefits from it.
These sound like very, very, very interesting projects. I think many years ago I would have thought, well, if I was a geologist, that means I just went out and I would do some digging for rocks. But obviously, when you prepare for one of these programs like you just described, or an expedition in another country, there's a lot of work and planning goes into that. How do you prepare when you're getting ready for a dig? What's involved in that?
Well, the first thing we do is we check maps of the areas, and we have to get geological maps out and find out where the exposures are of these different geological time periods. For example, you wouldn't look for dinosaurs someplace where there's never been dinosaurs, or they've been eroded away over the years. So we have to find real hot spots for things like that first. Then after we do that, then we have to check with the landowners, because we can't go out and just dig dinosaur bones or gemstones or anything else. We have to get permission from the landowners if it's on private land. If it's on public lands, then we got to make sure that it's legal. For example, you can't collect vertebrate fossils animals with backbones on any kind of public lands. So we usually go on the private ranches, get permission from the ranchers. We help them out financially a little bit by bringing people on, and they get a little bit of money. And if it's something spectacular, they get more money, and the finished skeleton stuff goes to the museum. Just like that Mosasaurus, which I have a picture of there, it will be going to a museum in the east once we finish prepping out. And we found that last summer. In fact, we were just walking along the one ranch where the rancher said he'd seen it, and we went along and we were able to spread out in an area, and we located the vertebrae first, and then we dug in the hillside and found the rest of the skeleton, or three-fourths of the skeleton.
That's absolutely interesting. Just a question: when you do say you find an area that you're interested in and you want to pursue it, what is generally the reception of the landowner? If they understand your credentials, do you find them usually willing, or are they a little bit resistant? How do they react when you approach them to ask for permission to work on their property?
Well, it depends. We pretty much have a heads up ahead of time on what ranch owners will let us on. Sometimes they're very leery about it, and they won't let anybody on at all. Sometimes they'll let just museums on. And since we aren't technically a museum, some ranch owners won't let us on. But the ones that we get on with are very pleased with the way we do it, because we're just like the professional paleontologists. We do everything just exactly the same. The only difference is we have more people to find the different areas and find the different bones. So actually we actually prevent more bones from being destroyed, because we do have more hands to work on. And we do professionally. We have all the equipment. One of the big things we bring out, and people don't realize, is we bring out super glue with us out there. And when you find the bones, if you don't preserve them with super glue right away, they will fall apart when you grab hold of them and stuff. And people don't realize that a lot of times. So we have to soak them with super glue. We have to plaster some of the things up, put them in plaster type of mold to bring them out in the field. There's a lot of planning goes into it, a lot of different help from landowners. So a landowner will come in with a bulldozer and will help remove the bones that we find. And then we take them to an area down in Georgia there, one of the universities down there, and we have some students that help prepare the fossils before they go to the museums.
A great opportunity for the students in the university, I imagine, to participate in that. You know, I think about your experience, Mr. Manning, in so many different countries, so many different types of digs. Can you share some stories with the young people listening tonight about some of your greatest successes, and also as well challenges, because that's a part of life as well?
Well, you know, it's been there's been all kinds of stories I can tell you. I mean, some of them are actually very humorous here, but at the time they didn't seem humorous. There was a time I was digging crystals down in Arkansas, you know, on a private claim down there, and we were paying so much a day to dig them, and my car somehow went out of gear and went over the side of a hill, which wasn't too much fun. But you know, there's another time we were up in Canada, and we were digging for amethyst crystals, and we just got there at the mine. It was a private mine again. We were paying the guy to dig there, and as soon as I got there, he had his hood of his truck up, and he says, "Come over here real fast, get behind the hood." And when we did that, I didn't realize, but he was blasting, and he blasted a big chunk out of the mine, and we were hiding behind the hood as these big chunks of rock were coming hitting his car, and we were was kind of scared at the time there, but we got into a nice pocket of amethyst and had a good time with it. But you know, sometimes there's a little few things like that. We're kind of careful about things, but sometimes there's some things you come across that you look back, it's humorous afterwards, but at the time it wasn't too humorous at the time. You know, I've been through dust storms out west, you know, digging. You know, we have acquired some snakes around us, but you know, we're kind of careful about that, and scorpions. It's been a lot of fun too, because we found a lot of different areas. The Mosasaurus we found last year was kind of exciting, because that huge one that I showed you a picture of is going to go to the museum. I found a Triceratops brow horn this summer out there, which I have a picture I sent you guys are showing before it's prepared out. And I've dug gemstones different places. One of the places up in Canada, I dug for something called Herkimer diamonds. I dug for about 5 days with sledgehammer and chisel, and didn't find anything. But on the 5th day, I broke into a pocket and got about 1,000 crystals out, which were like beautiful perfectly terminated quartz crystals, but they call them Herkimer diamonds. So that's exciting when you find something real spectacular like that.
What would you say your greatest success of your career, one or two, were as you look back over the last 30 years?
Success in my career. I'll have to say teaching kids about science, and I've taken many kids over to Flint Ridge, Ohio to dig flint and crystals, different field trips. We've gone caving. That's part of it too. I just enjoy educating the kids to the earth science and just enjoying traveling across the whole country. Remember one time I was coming down from the Cascades in Oregon, and it was getting dark, starting to get dark, and I looked up and I saw a triple rainbow right over one of the mesas up there, which is the prettiest sight I've ever seen. Unfortunately, a lot of times I don't have a camera with me to take pictures, and I need to, but there's a lot of things in my traveling that I couldn't tell somebody else what it was like unless they were actually there.
Those are the moments that are priceless. I imagine in more than 30 years you've seen incredible changes in the field of geology. What do you think, if you based on that experience and what you know now, what do you think's in store? What do you think some of the greatest changes are in the field of geology that the youth might experience in the future?
Well, of course, everything is more technical than it used to be. Using computers now to find a pocket of spectacular crystals or something, they use the imaging where the technology where they send vibrations in the ground and shows where the stuff's at. And same with even dinosaur bones, they do that sometimes now. So it's getting more technological, but also there's less and less places all the time to collect that, because as we progress in our population, we actually, and build more houses, we actually cut out places where we can collect that, like in the past. So that is a big change here. Also, I think there's going to be a lot more jobs in environmental geology and groundwater, because that is a concern today with a lot, and of course the different things like oil and gas and the different resources we need. So there's going to be a lot of change towards that, I think, too.